Hello, and welcome to Eastern Roman History. This is an overview of the first Arab siege of Constantinople in the 660s, including the events of the war that led to this historic event, based upon modern research and a wide range of primary sources. In AD 662, the Umayyad Caliphate started launching annual raids against the Eastern Roman Empire, which was ruled by Emperor Constans II, who in the same year began a tour of the western half of his empire, visiting Corinth, southern Italy, Rome, and, by AD 663, Syracuse on the island of Sicily, which he made his new headquarters. Constans II left his wife, sons, and ministers in charge of the east. In AD 667, the Strategos of the Armeniacon army rebelled and proclaimed himself emperor. He gathered his forces to march on Constantinople and sent an envoy to the Caliphate to petition the Caliph for help to claim the throne. The imperial government sent their own diplomat to try and block Siborius, but his mission was unsuccessful. An Islamic army under the command of Fadala was dispatched to assist the usurper with his march on Constantinople. Siborius also set off towards the capital. The emperor's own army, under the command of the loyal general Nikephoros, was sent from Constantinople to confront the enemy. It never came to battle. At the town of Adrianopolis in Anatolia, during a military drill, Siborius's horse threw its rider as he passed the city's gate. He cracked his skull open on the masonry and died. Not wishing to lose his momentum, Caliph Muawiyah sent reinforcements to Fadala under the command of the Caliph's own son, Yazid, to lead the army to Constantinople. This army and navy was created at vast expense to the resources of the Caliphate, which levied new taxes and soldiers from their conquered subjects. New ships were built in Mesopotamia to be used in the siege. Nikephoros' army withdrew, and the walls of Constantinople were repaired to withstand a siege. By the winter of AD 667 to 668, Yazid and Fadala had arrived with their forces at Chalcedon, which were now a stone's throw away from Constantinople. Meanwhile, an Arab fleet rendezvoused with the Islamic army and ferried them across the Bosphorus to the Hebdomon. They ransacked the local area and placed Constantinople under a siege by land and sea. Although we do not know much about the actual siege, we do know that Constantinople was kept under a tight blockade. The Patriarch of Constantinople, Thomas, was unable to send his important synodical letters to the Pope during his patriarchate from AD 667 to 669. The Emperor Constantine IV led the defense of the city, and there is a report of a battle between the two sides, which the Romans lost. Both sides led assaults and sorties against one another, but neither was able to gain a decisive victory over the other. Despite their persistence, the Arabs were unable to break through the walls of Constantinople, and had suffered many casualties from hunger and disease. On the 25th of June 668, the Arabs lifted the siege of Constantinople, but remained in its hinterlands to plunder well into the following year. The siege of Constantinople had a devastating effect on the stability of Constans II's rule. While his son had been busy fighting the Arabs, he had been busy in the west, implementing reforms, reorganizing the administration, campaigning against the Slavs, and reinforcing the Roman position in North Africa. Behind his back, a conspiracy had formed composed of court eunuchs, generals, and ministers to eliminate the emperor. Not only had Constans II done nothing to defend Constantinople, whose environs were still being subjected to the plunder, rapine, and death meted out by a foreign enemy, but the emperor also wanted to bring his family to Sicily, which to many seemed like he was going to abandon Constantinople. On the 5th of November 668, Constans II was assassinated while taking a bath. The authorities on Syracuse then proclaimed Mezizius, Count of the Opsikion, as emperor. Meanwhile, the now senior emperor Constantine IV sent envoys to the caliph to negotiate a truce, which took well into AD 669 to conclude. With the truce finalized, Yazid's forces marched back to the caliphate. While they withdrew, the Arabs captured the strategically important city of Amorion. Although the situation was bleak, with continuous Arab raids, Constantine IV, with Constantinople no longer under threat, sprung into action. A Roman force under the command of the eunuch Andrew recaptured Amorion after a daring attack. They eliminated the Arab garrison of some 5,000 troops. A fleet was also prepared to sail to Sicily to confront the usurper Mezizius. Operations could not get underway while the Sea of Marmara and the Aegean Sea swarmed with Arab pirate ships. For Mezizius, the situation was not much different. In AD 669 or 670, a major Arab raid devastated the Roman province of Africa. Virtually nothing is known about the reign of the usurper Mezizius, other than he minted some coins, and his usurpation lasted from 668 to 672. In the winter of 670 to 671, an Arab fleet wintered in Cyzicus. At last Constantine IV was ready. The Roman fleet sailed to the Hellespont, where the ships were carried overland across the isthmus, probably to avoid confronting the Arab navy. From there they sailed to Sicily. Before he arrived, the Pope Adeodatus II, the exarchs of Ravenna and Africa, and the governor of Sardinia rebelled against the usurper Mezizius and began marshalling their armies against him too. In 672, Constantine IV landed on Sicily, and in the subsequent conflict, for which we have no details, Mezizius was killed. He was succeeded by his son John, who managed to continue the struggle for 7 months before finally being defeated and killed, ending the rebellion once and for all. Constantine IV rounded up the conspirators that had assassinated his father, meting out mutilation or execution to them for their treason. Once the West had been restored to imperial control, the emperor, the Carabisianoi fleet, and the rest of the armies that had accompanied Constans II westward returned east. Later the same year, an Eastern Roman force sailed to Egypt to raid the coastline. Meanwhile, the Arabs sent their own raid against Anatolia. In 672 to 673, the Arabs directed a massive armada commanded by Muhammad ibn Abdallah and Abdallah ibn Qais that raided the southern coast of Anatolia towards the Lycian coast. In the winter of 673, they anchored all along the coast from Smyrna to Lycia and Cilicia. Fortunately, at just this time, Callinicus of Heliopolis, an architect from Syria, brought his new invention of Greek fire to the Roman emperor. He had concocted a chemical that, when lit, could not be put out by water. This weapon was equipped on ships that could shoot their deadly contents at an enemy vessel, burning everything in its path. Meanwhile, a huge Arab army led by Sufyan ibn Auf marched into Anatolia in the direction of Lycia. In AD 674, the Roman army, led by the strategoi Florus, Patronus, and Cyprian, marched against the Arab army in Lycia. The Romans were victorious after fighting a colossal battle at Syllaion, leaving the Arab commander and 30,000 of his men dead upon the battlefield. With similar success, the Roman navy engaged the big Arab fleet and destroyed it. Greek fire played a decisive role in bringing the Romans victory at sea. This decisive double victory in AD 674 is what turned the tide of the war, but it was not over yet. In AD 675, Abdallah ibn Qais and Fadala and their fleet wintered on Crete after a season of raiding. However, after this incident, Arab raids ceased. The Roman navy counterattacked with a raid against the Syrian coast, during which the governor of Homs was killed. In the spring of 676, there was a major Slavic siege on Thessalonica as a result of the assassination of the Slavic chief Purbandus, who had been threatening the region. In 677, Constantine IV spared 10 warships of troops and supplies to defend the beleaguered city. This Roman island in a Slavonic sea had to hold its own until the conclusion of the Umayyad War. On the 25th of July 677, the Slavs launched a general assault on Thessalonica, but the Roman defences held. Constantine IV launched his own invasion of the Caliphate to bring the war to an end. Across the sea, the Romans landed troops in Lebanon, called the Mardiites, who pillaged the local area and terrorized the Arabs in Palestine. During the rest of 677 and 678, the Mardiites quickly took control of the mountains from Amnus to Galilee and were joined by many Christians living in the region, bolstering their ranks and providing them with food and equipment. Mardiites remained in operation there for a couple of decades until they were returned to the empire during the reign of Justinian II, when the Caliph begged for them to be removed from the Caliphate. In AD 678, now free of Arab raids, the Eastern Roman army relieved the siege of Thessalonica. The effectiveness of the Mardiites and the successes of the Romans since 674 effectively brought the war to an end, although no peace treaty was signed. Constantine IV and his troops, over a decade of constant warfare, had finally triumphed over their enemy. On the 28th of March AD 681, at the 13th session of the Sixth Ecumenical Council, which had been organised by Constantine IV, the Cartophylax George delivered his declaration, which contains the first mention of the first Arab siege of Constantinople. And this has been Eastern Roman history.